Okay, so how many different entities or offices are currently investigating the President of the United States or his associates or businesses? Trying to tally it up, here's what we came up with. Until very recently, we were all focused on the Office of the Special Counsel, Robert Mueller, and the investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 election. That's already led to indictments or plea deals involving Michael Flynn, Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, George Papadopoulos, a dozen Russian intelligence officers, more than a dozen Russian nationals, and 3 Russian companies. Along the way, Mueller also referred the matter of Michael Cohen to the Southern District of New York, since Cohen's crimes didn't appear to come under the umbrella of Mueller's Russia investigation. But just look what that now has led to. Not only to Michael Cohen pleading guilty to 8 felony counts, but to a criminal investigation which may implicate both the Trump Organization and certain unnamed executives who aided in the illegal hush money scheme. That also led to a grant of immunity to the National Enquirer publisher David Pecker and to Trump Org CFO Allen Weisselberg. Meanwhile, the state of New York started its own line of inquiry. They filed a civil suit against the Trump Foundation, as well as referring its findings to both the IRS and the FEC, which may or may not act on that information. And now we know the Manhattan DA is also eyeing the Trump Organization. All of this raises the question, how likely is it that one or more of these lines of criminal and civil investigation will lead back to the man at the top, Donald Trump? To help assess this vast landscape of potential legal liability, let's bring in attorney Lisa Green and attorney Elie Mystal, executive editor of the legal blog Above the Law. A lot's proliferated, it seems to me, over the course of the week, particularly when you pair 2 things. The subpoena that came from Michael Cohen the day after he pleaded from the state, and the article in the New York Times saying Cy Vance, the Manhattan DA, is eyeing charges as well.
Yeah, this was the week where the Marine Corps band stopped playing Hail to the Chief and started playing Reigns of Castamere. Okay, the daggers are out now, and it's coming all around him. The legal exposure for Donald Trump is great. One of the things about having so many irons in the fire is that one of them is almost at this point bound to pay off. In that report that you just did, you didn't mention Michael Avenatti, who's still out here running for president and trying to get his own deposition.
He's got that, right, the civil suit.
Right, so there are all these, Barbara Underwood also, the New York AG, is contemplating criminal charges in addition to the civil charges. So the exposure for Donald Trump is as great as has been for anybody in the history of his office.
Or maybe lawyers' clients ever, right? But okay, so to start to narrow it down, let's look at taxes. Because we've all really wanted to look at President Trump's taxes since the time he ran for office. If his office, if Allen Weisselberg, who, by the way, can you not picture him with a green eye shade and an adding machine and like a pencil, like this old-fashioned way of doing business, every check is cleared by the president. Let's say they misallocated the hush money payment as a payment to a lawyer, which you get to deduct from your taxes because it makes paying for lawyers easier.
And in the information, that's what prosecutors assert. Right. It was wrongly charged.
Guess what? Potential tax fraud. Right. How do you prove tax fraud? Tax returns help. So there's a lot of cascading legal problems, but that seems to be one that isn't related to Russia and is fairly easily carried forward by state authorities or federal authorities.
And I don't even think that Trump's exposure is what Trump should be most worried about right now. It's his children, right? Like that's who all of this is leading up to. If you look at all the people who've got immunity, I didn't see Don Jr.'s name, I didn't see Eric's name, I didn't see Jared's name. Right. All of this is coming at his children. Barack Obama, after Sandy Hook, said that having children is like walking around with your heart, having your heart walk around unprotected. Right. Now, I don't know if Donald Trump has the parental instincts of like a mammal. Right. I'm not sure he's there, but if he is, that's where they're going to squeeze next. That's where all of this is coming from. You don't need Weisselberg to get Cohen. You need Weisselberg to get Executive 2, which may or may not be Donald Trump Jr., right? That's what you need, and that's where they're going to squeeze next.
Can I just add that in addition to the people who may be squeezed, there are the potential volunteers. Here's what I mean. Loyalty is probably something you earn one-to-one. Disloyalty, I think, is contagious. And if other people in the Trump orbit, I'm speculating, are watching what's happening and maybe get reacquainted with their sense of a conscience this week after what they saw, who's to stop them from volunteering information we don't know? Part
of what's strange about this entire thing, you think about all these different investigations all looking at this stuff now, is that the kind of implicit assumption by everyone, including the President of the United States when he talks about people flipping, is that, of course, there are chargeable crimes that exist in the record of the president and his organization. I don't even think that's really a thing that anyone too strenuously attempts to dispute, whether it be Rudy Giuliani or the president's defenders on Trump TV. The assumption is just, do they find them and do they have the kind of political wherewithal to go after them?
And this is where I think Professor Alan Dershowitz, one of my former professors, and I try not to be mean to him on television, but like, this is where he's out to lunch, all right? Because Dershowitz is one of these guys who has taken intent, who has taken criminal intent completely out of this situation. Yes, campaign finances laws are complicated. Yes, people often violate them accidentally. Yes, tax laws are complicated. Yes, people violate them sometimes accidentally. If Trump meant to do it, if Trump did this on purpose to influence an election, that is criminal intent. That is part of the question here.
And listen to that tape, and those aren't people bumbling their way backwards into not filing forms. These are people engaged in a sophisticated scheme to cover something up using a variety of channels of money intentionally with the intent to deceive.
Familiar territory. And, you know, I've mocked on this air the essential consultants agreement because it just looked so amateurish. Right. But what's clear from that audio tape is familiar territory for the president, for Michael Cohen, perhaps. We don't know Alan Weisselberg's level of knowledge, and an unnamed executive.
Well, that's also part of it. They have this issue in front of them, which I think to most people would seem like a novel issue, right? This is like someone has come forward alleging that you had an extramarital affair and is going to blow the whistle on that perhaps in a public fashion, in a tabloid, and you need to figure out a way to pay money. It's dealt with in a way that feels fairly rote.
Yes.
I mean, that's part of what's interesting. Like the routine to do it, where you gross it up, you throw in the bonus, you make it a retainer, you do it monthly, you do it through the org. All that stuff seems like they.
Because this ain't their first rodeo, right?
No,
Look, as you were saying earlier, right? The most interesting person to me here is David Pecker. David Pecker has that Trump vault. Right. There's something. It's like you were saying. It's not Geraldo. There's something in the vault that we want to find out, right?
All right, Lisa Green and Elie Mystal. Yeah, I think that's a consensus view. Thank you. Coming up, did the White House tank a bipartisan bill to protect elections? That story's next.
You're watching MSNBC International.
When the facts are hidden in the shadows, and every lead takes you further down a winding.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.